Close your eyes for a brief and terrifying instant, and imagine that the relentless fabric of space-time was violently torn in half.
Pulling your fragile, sanitized, and modern body through a dark abyss 846 years into the past. You open your eyes, and you are no longer in the sterile comfort of the 21st century. During the cruel and grim peak of the High Middle Ages, under the brutal reign of Henry II.
The very first thing that will strike your central nervous system with the force of an iron sledgehammer.
It is not the primitive Gothic architecture of wood and straw,
nor the rustic woolen clothes of the peasants. Nor the sound of the parish bells calling to mass.
The first thing that will paralyze your lungs, turn your modern stomach, and make your eyes water from pure chemical agony is the smell.
The absolute, omnipresent, thick, and almost chewable stench hanging over the English capital is a living entity, a gaseous monster.
Formed by the infernal and non-stop combination of damp wood smoke and coal burning in hearths without proper chimneys.
Mixed with the sour and pungent odor of unwashed human sweat from thousands of crowded people. Fresh horse manure, loose pigs wallowing in the mud of the public roads.
And, most terrifying of all,
literal rivers of human feces, urine, and organic waste slurry that flow freely, in the open air, down the stone gutters right in the
straight toward the muddy waters of the River Thames.
But the true and terrifying question of biological and psychological survival that imposes itself right now is vacuum refrigerated and bathed in modern chemical preservatives have the courage, the stomach, and the absolute insanity
to take a single, miserable bite of the disgusting, lethal, and fascinating street food of medieval London?
To satisfy your hunger, you need to walk through the labyrinth of muddy streets. Dodging lepers begging on the corners, dark-robed monks.
You walk toward the polluted banks of the River Thames, where the medieval and primitive version of modern fast food districts is located.
The London cleric and historian William Fitzstephen, writing exactly at this time, at the end of the 12th century,
proudly described with marvel a massive and noisy public cookshop, open 24 hours a day, located by the river,
where locals, exhausted travelers, foreign sailors, and hungry merchants could buy food ready for immediate consumption at any time of the day or night.
For Fitzstephen, that was the peak of civilization and urban convenience. For you, however, that place would look like the antechamber of a bacteriological nightmare worthy of a body horror movie.
The rotting wooden stalls and makeshift kitchens, smoke under tents stained with black grease from years of use. The heat emanating from the massive cast iron cauldrons boiling over open fires is suffocating.
Then meat of absolutely questionable origin being roasted slowly over crackling coals.
Hygiene is a concept that hasn't even been invented yet.
Germ theory would only be discovered at the end of the 19th century. The flavor was a bland mix of damp earth, bitter wood smoke, lumpy porridge texture, and the iron tang of residual coagulated blood. And where did cooks get the countless gallons of water needed to boil this stew every day? They sent young boys with wooden buckets straight to the River Thames.
The main attraction, the absolute and undisputed flagship of fast, cheap street food in 1180 London.
It is the famous and infamous meat pasty. Visually, from afar, it might even look vaguely appetizing and familiar. A rounded, baked pastry.
But the reality of its construction is a death trap.
The cook takes a piece of this eel, skewers it on a sharp piece of wood.
Grills it quickly over soot-filled flames, perhaps salting it with coarse salt full of impurities, and hands it to you.
The meat would be extremely greasy, dense, bony, and undeniably carry in every fiber of its muscle tissue.
The unmistakable, muddy, and revolting taste of the medieval sewer where the creature grew up.
The raw or lightly smoked oysters, harvested in those same gloomy estuarine waters. A single oyster swallowed whole from those riverside stalls would have the fulminating biochemical power.
And how would you hold your food if you refused the disgusting, chipped, unwashed, communal wooden bowl?
They didn't have shiny porcelain plates or biodegradable paper trays to hand out food on the street.
If you bought a large portion of roast meat or a thick fava bean stew, the food would be served raw and directly on top of a trencher.
A thick, coarse, circular, and heavy slice of dark rye or inferior grain mix.
4 days old, baked specifically to be hard, stale, and absorbent like a spongy wooden board.
This old bread functioned exactly as an edible temporary plate.
After the feudal lord or wealthy burgess finished devouring the luxurious piece of roast meat with his own greasy hands, wiping his fingers on the tablecloth,
The trencher remained in the center of the table, now wonderfully and terribly soaked to its core with the rich, coveted juices of the roast meat.
The drained warm blood, dripping lard, heavy sauces, and all the rich fluids of the main feast, transforming that hard...
They sent their servants to collect the damp, disgusting slices from the tables.
to be directly and actively resolved for a fraction of a coin in the noisy streets to the miserable, starving crowds that formed the rabble.
To desperate peasants or beggar hostels. They were dirty plates, drooled on by strangers, actively recycled on the sidewalk as succulent delicacies full of essential calories for survival under the snow.
If you were hungry enough in the freezing London cold, you would gladly pay.
To devour the bread softened by the gastric juices, the blood, and the food scraps spilled and chewed by the lord of the castle.
If, against all statistical and logical medical odds and your body's survival instincts, you somehow didn't look away.
Didn't gag, and actually managed to chew and force down that moldy pigeon rat pork pie, that infinite bubbling sewage water stew, or the feces-contaminated...
Drinking pure water from the river or public fountains was the sociological and scientific equivalent of playing Russian roulette.
Liked to balance the body's four humors and extract the ghostly evil from the poor, dying soul's organism. The only daily and constant salvation available for hydration for the masses of peasants, from men to pregnant women and even toddlers,
was drinking the thousands upon thousands of gallons of medieval ale. The omnipresent, heavy, cloudy, dark, and thick foaming street beer, brewed locally and by hand in the homes of the alewives.
Served in a perfect glass with a white collar that you drink while watching sports.
The street beer of that savage era was often physically, sensorially, and literally described as dense, liquid bread, made, decanted, unhomogenized, of an oppressive, cloudy, dark brown color, full of floating tiny twig debris from husks.
Mildly bitter without the modern refinement of hops, and very lightly and discreetly alcoholic so as not to dehydrate,
and almost always terrifyingly consumed in gigantic communal mugs of carved horn, insulating pitch.
Inside dark taverns illuminated by smoky, sooty torches, infested mangy rats on the...
If you had a massive, tearing existential thirst in the infernal heat and the unbearable, disgusting smell of death in the primitive streets of London, and try futilely to hold your useless breath against the smell. All the thick and dirty liquid.
mixed and fermented carelessly and dangerously in a filthy manner.
In unsanitary medieval cauldrons. By dangerous, damp street hands full of biological pathogens.
Could at least paralyze the terrible, colossal colonies of bacteria.
That formed microscopic legions.
That you had stupidly, disgustingly, and recklessly chewed.
From the corrupted beef. Latin to places of the great scientific and mathematical probabilities that governs our clean, protected society.
The dangerous poisons and filth of the authentic, disgusting, deadly street food.
And of the dense, gloomy, oppressive, astonishing, dark, and macabre. Terrifying. Age of smoke and the darkness of diseases.
Cruelly called the obscure, fetid, and stinking. Of the great, brutal, and astonishing.
Violent Middle Ages and the English Middle Ages.
Brutal, dirty, dangerous, lethal, and cruel. Middle Ages of the deep, long darkness. Fetid, cruel, medieval.
Medieval of the dense, rotten, dirty, dark Middle Ages.
Never take for granted the invisible shield of modern science that protects your body every single day.
If you survived this horrific journey through the medieval streets and want to experience more terrifying and fascinating corners of history, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications.
Leave a comment below telling me, what is the one modern food you could never survive without if you were sent back to the year 1180?
And share this video with someone who constantly romanticizes the past. Let them see what living in the Dark Ages really smelled like.
I am Lara, and I will see you in the next journey. Hopefully, a cleaner one.